The message came from nowhere. It arrived at the Galactic Council Station on a Tuesday morning, cutting through every defense system like they were made of paper. The signal was old, very old. The kind of old that made even the ancient Zephyrians stop talking and listen. Commander Vexthul stood in the center of the great council chamber. Around him, representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their floating chairs. Some had scales, some had fur. Some were just energy beings in containment suits. But they all had one thing in common now. They were all staring at the message playing on the giant screen above them. The voice that spoke was deep and strange. It used words that the translation computers struggled with. Words from a language that had been dead for thousands of years. "We are the precursors," the voice said. "We who came before you. We who watched the galaxy grow from darkness into light. This message is our final gift to you, our final warning." Vexthul felt his 4 hearts beating faster. Everyone knew about the precursors. They were legends. Stories told to children about the great race that had vanished long before any of the current civilizations had learned to make fire. Most people thought they were just myths. The voice continued. "In the spiral arm you call Orion, there is a small yellow star. Around this star orbits a blue and green world. On this world lives a species that calls itself human. Remember this. Name. Write it in your most sacred books. Carve it into your monuments. Pass it down to your children and your children's children." Murmurs started around the chamber. Vexthul raised one of his 6 arms for silence. The message was not finished. Never challenge them. Never provoke them. Never think you understand them. They are not like you. They are not like us. They are something else, something dangerous. We learned this truth too late. Do not repeat our mistake. The screen flickered. For a moment, Vexthul thought he saw images. Flashes of light that might have been explosions. Shapes that might have been ships burning in space. Then the screen went dark. The chamber was quiet for a long time. Finally, Ambassador Creolon from the Alteron Empire stood up. Her blue skin was darker than usual, which meant she was either angry or scared. Maybe both. "This is clearly a fake," she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "Someone is playing games with us. The precursors have been gone for 50,000 years, dead and buried. This is probably some terrorist group trying to scare us." Other voices joined hers. Agreement rippled through the chamber like water. Vexthul was not surprised. The Galactic Council liked things that made sense. They liked order. They liked knowing where threats came from and how to deal with them. A message from extinct aliens warning about some unknown species did not fit into their organized world. General Thakmer of the Kethter hegemony stood up next. He was huge, even for his species. His red armor caught the light as he moved. The Kethter were warriors. They had conquered 17 star systems in the last century alone. If Thakmer was worried about something, people listened. "I have studied the star charts," he said. His voice was like grinding metal. "This Orion arm they speak of is real. The yellow star is real. We have detected radio signals from the 3rd planet. Primitive communications. The species there has barely learned to leave their own world." He activated his personal display. A hologram appeared above his chair, showing a small blue planet. "These humans, if they exist, are nothing. Our scouts report they still use chemical rockets. They fight wars with metal bullets and crude explosives. Their most powerful weapons are fusion devices that would barely scratch the hull of our smallest ships." Laughter started around the chamber. Not the kind of laughter that came from joy, but the kind that came from relief. The kind that said, "We were worried about nothing." Dr. Yelena from the Scientific Consortium adjusted her 3 eyes to focus on the display. "The data supports General Thakmer's assessment," she said in her careful, precise way. These humans have existed in their current form for perhaps 200,000 years. In all that time, they have never left their star system. They show no signs of advanced technology, no faster-than-light travel, no energy weapons, no artificial intelligence. Beyond the most basic level, she paused to check her notes. They are, by every measure we use, a Class II civilization, barely above the level where we would consider making first contact. The idea that such a species could pose a threat to civilizations that have mastered space travel for millions of years is absurd. More agreement filled the chamber. Vexthal watched it all and said nothing. He had been commander of the Council Guard for 300 years. He had seen a lot of things. He had learned that the universe was full of surprises. Most of them were not pleasant, but even he had to admit the evidence was clear. The humans were primitive. They were trapped on one small world around one ordinary star. They had no allies, no advanced technology, no way to threaten anyone beyond their own atmosphere. Ambassador Zektar from the Void Touched spoke up from his corner of the chamber. His species rarely said anything in council meetings. When they did, people listened. The Void Touched were old. Not as old as the precursors were supposed to be, but old enough to remember things that other species had forgotten. Perhaps, he said in his whisper-quiet voice, we should investigate this warning more carefully. The precursors were not known for making jokes. General Thakmer laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Investigate what? A message that could have been made by anyone with access to old language files? A warning about creatures who think nuclear weapons are the height of military technology? He stood up to his full height. The light reflected off his armor made him look like a statue of war itself. The Kethter hegemony has been expanding. In that direction, anyway. We need the resources those systems contain. If these humans want to surrender peacefully, we will accept. If they want to fight, he shrugged his massive shoulders. It will be over quickly. Around the chamber, heads nodded. Even the species that usually opposed Kethter expansion seemed to think this was reasonable. After all, what harm could one primitive world do? Vexthal felt something cold in his stomach, a feeling he had learned to trust over his long career. But he looked at the data again. He looked at the images of the small blue world with its single moon. He looked at the humans in their crude metal ships that moved slower than most cargo haulers. The feeling stayed with him, but he pushed it down. Facts were facts. Evidence was evidence. The humans were no threat to anyone. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council would ignore the precursor warning. General Thakmer would continue his expansion plans. The humans would be contacted with standard surrender terms. If they refused, they would be conquered like any other primitive world dot as the council members filed out of the chamber, chatting about lunch plans and trade agreements. None of them noticed the small detail Dr. Yelena had missed in her report. Humans had gone from horse-drawn carts to splitting atoms in less than 200 years. They had gone from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in 66 years. Their technology was not advanced by galactic standards, but it was accelerating at a rate that had never been seen before in any species. But even if someone had noticed this detail, it probably would not have changed anything. After all, how much could one small world accomplish, no matter how fast they learned? The galaxy was about to find out. The Kethter fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human solar system. General Thakmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist, and looked at the small yellow star ahead of them. Around him, his officers checked their weapons and prepared for what they expected to be a very short war. Report, Thakmer commanded Commander Velenith. His second-in-command turned from her station. We have 120 ships in formation. The humans have detected our arrival. They are sending radio signals on multiple frequencies. What are they saying? The usual primitive greetings. Welcome to our system. Please state your intentions. That sort of thing. Villeneuve's voice carried the bored tone of someone who had heard the same words from dozens of other conquered worlds. Thakmer nodded. And their defenses? Minimal. We count perhaps 50 small ships around their homeworld. Chemical rockets. With nuclear warheads. Their largest vessel is about the size of our shuttlecraft. They have some kind of space station, but it appears to be for research, not military use. The general allowed himself a small smile. The conquest of Earth would be even easier than he had expected. These humans had not even built proper warships. Their entire military seemed designed for fighting other humans, not defending against a real threat from space. Open a channel to their homeworld, he ordered. The main screen flickered to life. After a few moments, a human face appeared. It was an older male with gray hair and lined skin. He wore some kind of military uniform covered in small colored rectangles. Behind him, other humans moved back and forth, all looking nervous. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force, a voice said. The translation software was working, but Thakmer noticed the speaker was not the man. On screen. To whom am I speaking? Thakmer stepped forward so the humans could see him clearly. He wanted them to understand exactly what they were facing. I am General Thakmer of the Kethter Hegemony. You will surrender your world immediately. You? Have one of your hours to comply. The human on screen said something to someone behind him. Other humans gathered around, talking quickly in voices too low for the translator to pick up. Finally, the female voice spoke again. General, we would like to discuss terms. Perhaps we can reach some kind of agreement that benefits both our peoples. Thakmer had heard this before, too. Every primitive world tried to negotiate when they first saw a real space fleet. They always thought they had something to offer. They were always wrong. There are no terms, he said. You will surrender completely, or you will be destroyed. Choose. Now, the humans talked among themselves for several minutes. Thakmer waited patiently. Fear took time to sink in. Soon they would realize they had no choice. General, the human voice finally said, we cannot surrender our world. We must decline your offer. Thakmer felt genuine surprise. In his 3 centuries of conquest, only a handful of species had been stupid enough to refuse surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Those species no longer existed. You understand what this means? He asked. We understand perfectly. We also understand that you clearly did not come here to make friends, so we will fight. The screen went dark. Commander Villeneuve looked at her. General with confusion. Sir, should we grant them the chance to reconsider? No, Thakmer said. They have made their choice. Begin the attack. Target their major population centers first. Once they see what our weapons can do, the survivors will be more reasonable. The Kethter fleet moved toward Earth like a pack of metal predators. Their ships were black and angular, designed to look as threatening as they were deadly. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a continent. Together, they could burn the surface of a planet clean of all life. The human ships moved to intercept them. It was brave, Thakmer admitted to himself. Completely pointless, but brave. He almost felt sorry for them. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 18 minutes. The human ships fired everything they had. Nuclear missiles streaked through space toward the Kethter fleet. Some of them even hit their targets. The explosions lit up the darkness like tiny new stars. When the light faded, the Kethter ships were completely undamaged. Their shields had absorbed the nuclear fire like it was nothing more than warm rain. The Kethter response was swift and terrible. Energy beams lanced out from their weapons, turning human ships into clouds of glowing metal vapor. Within minutes, the entire Earth defense fleet was gone. Not defeated, gone, as if it had never existed at all. Pitiful, Velenith commented. Their weapons could not even scratch our paint. Thekmer said nothing. He was watching the human homeworld on his screen. Even now, after seeing their entire military destroyed, there were no surrender signals coming from the planet. That was unusual. Most species gave up after losing their first battle. Begin bombardment of the surface, he ordered. Target there. Largest cities. Make it visible from space. The Iron Fist and her sister ships turned their weapons toward Earth. Beams of concentrated energy reached down from orbit like the fingers of an angry god. Where they touched, matter simply ceased to exist. In seconds. Entire city blocks vanished. In minutes, whole cities were gone. The humans had built their settlements near large bodies of water, which began to boil and steam as the energy weapons heated them past the point where life could survive. Thekmer watched the destruction with professional interest. The humans had built impressive cities for such a primitive species. Their architecture was actually quite beautiful in its own simple way. It was almost a shame to destroy it. The bombardment continued for 2 hours. When it finally stopped, 17 major human cities had been completely destroyed. The death toll was in the millions. That should be sufficient, Thekmer said. Open. Another channel to whatever government is left. This time, a different human appeared on screen. This one was female, with dark skin and short black hair. She wore a different kind of uniform, and behind her Thekmer could see what looked like an underground command center. This is President Maria Santos, the human said. Her voice was steady, but Thekmer could hear the pain underneath it. What do you want? The same thing I wanted before. Complete surrender. You have seen what happens when you resist. Do not make me repeat the demonstration. The human leader was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Colder. We have families in those cities you destroyed. Children. People who never hurt anyone. You killed them for no reason except to make us afraid. Exactly, Thekmer replied. Fear is an excellent teacher. Have you learned the lesson? Oh, yes, President Santos said. We have learned a great deal. We learned that you are murderers. We learned that you cannot be reasoned with. We learned that you see us as nothing more than obstacles to be removed. She leaned forward, looking directly into the camera, and we learned that this means war. The screen went dark again. Thekmer stared at the empty screen for several seconds. Then he began to laugh. The sound echoed through the bridge of the Iron Fist. War? He said to his officers. They declare war on us? With what? Their military is destroyed. Their cities are burning. What could they possibly do to threaten us? Commander Velenith checked her instruments. Sir, we are detecting unusual activity from their remaining settlements. High energy signatures. They appear to be launching something. More ships? No. Sir, these appear to be much smaller craft. Perhaps escape pods or supply vessels. Thekmer nodded. Refugees, most likely. Trying to reach their outer colonies before we can destroy them too. Let them go. It will spread word of what happens to worlds that resist the hegemony. He turned away from the screen, already thinking about the next phase of the conquest. Landing. Troops securing resources, setting up a new outpost for the Kethter Empire. It was routine work. What he did not know was that the small craft leaving Earth were not refugee ships. They were message drones carrying a single transmission to every human colony in space. The message was short and simple. Remember us. Make them pay. And scattered across a dozen worlds, in mining stations and research outposts and colonies that had been struggling just to survive. Millions of humans heard those words and began to change. The Kethter had made their first mistake. When they ignored the precursor warning, they had just made their second mistake. They had made humanity angry. The message reached the Titan mining station 3 days after Earth died. Marcus Rodriguez was deep in the asteroid belt, working a double shift in the extraction tunnels when the emergency alert came through his helmet comm. He stopped drilling and looked at the small screen inside his visor. At first, he thought it was some kind of mistake. Earth could not be gone. His wife lived there. His 2 children lived there. 7 billion people lived there. But the data streams did not lie. The orbital cameras that had survived the attack showed the truth. 17 major cities were nothing but black craters now. The oceans near them were still boiling. Most of North America was burning. Marcus sat down on a chunk of iron ore and cried inside his helmet where no one could see. Then he got angry. 3 hours later, he was in the station commander's office, along with 50 other miners. Commander Lisa Park sat behind her desk looking like she had aged 10 years in one day. Her normally perfect uniform was wrinkled, and her eyes were red. "What are orders?" Marcus asked. "We do not have any orders," Park replied. "Earth Command is gone. The Luna military base is gone. The Mars defense grid is gone. As far as we know, we are on our own." "Then we make our own orders," said Elena Vasquez, the chief engineer. "Those alien bastards killed our families. We are going to kill them back." Park looked around the room at the faces of her people. They were miners and technicians and cargo haulers. They were not soldiers. But the look in their eyes was something she had never seen before. It was cold and hard and utterly without mercy. "How?" she asked. "We have 1 cargo ship and some mining equipment. They have a fleet of warships that can blow up planets." Alina smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Commander, these people have no idea what they are dealing with. They think we are just some primitive species that build simple machines. They are about to learn why that was a very bad assumption." The same conversation was happening on 12 other human colonies scattered across nearby star systems. Ceres, Station, the Europa Research Facility, the Proxima Centauri Outpost, New Shanghai on Kepler 442b. Each one had received the same message. Each one had lost friends and family on Earth. Each one had come to the same conclusion. The aliens had to pay. What happened next would have surprised any alien observer. If there had been any left alive to watch, the humans did not panic. They did not despair. They did not surrender. They got to work. On Titan Station, Elena Vasquez took apart the mining lasers and rebuilt them into something much more dangerous. The devices that had been designed to cut through rock were reconfigured to cut through metal. Specifically, the kind of metal used in alien ship hulls. On Ceres, Dr. James Chun started working on the navigation systems from captured alien fighters. Within 6 days, he had figured out how their faster-than-light drives worked. Within 2 weeks, he had built a better one. On Europa, Captain Sarah Kim began training her research team to fight. They were scientists and doctors and computer programmers. But they learned quickly. Humans, it turned out, had a natural talent for warfare when they were motivated properly. The motivation was simple. The aliens had killed their families. Now the aliens were going to die, but the humans were smart about it. They did not attack right away. They watched and learned and planned. They intercepted alien communications and cracked their codes. They studied captured alien technology and improved it. They mapped the locations of enemy bases and counted their ships. Most importantly, they started talking to each other. The human colonies had always been somewhat independent. Earth was far away, and travel between stars took months even with the best human technology. Each settlement had learned to solve its own problems and make its own decisions. Now, for the first time in human history, All the colonies were working toward the same goal. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was the one who came up with the plan that would change everything. She was working on Proxima Station, studying alien power systems, when she realized something important. The aliens were predictable. They followed patterns. They used the same ship designs. They followed the same tactics. They even used the same communication frequencies. For a species that had been conquering worlds for thousands of years, they had become very set in their ways. Humans, on the other hand, were chaos incarnate. Tanaka sent her findings to all the other colonies. Within hours, human engineers and scientists and military planners were working together across light years of space, sharing ideas and building on each other's work. They designed ships that did not look like ships. They created weapons that did not work like weapons. They developed tactics that no sane military mind would ever consider. The first test came 4 months after Earth's destruction. A small Kethter patrol was investigating the asteroid belt near Titan Station. 3 ships looking for any human survivors who might be hiding among the rocks. It was routine work, the kind of mission that junior officers got assigned to build experience. They found Marcus Rodriguez waiting for them. His ship did not appear on their sensors because it was not a ship. It was a hollowed-out asteroid with engines hidden inside it. The Kethter flew right past it, looking for metal signatures and energy readings that matched their expectations of human technology. Marcus waited until they were perfectly positioned. Then he fired. The weapon that destroyed the first Kethter ship had started life as a mining drill. Elena Vasquez had modified it to fire a stream of superheated plasma at near light speed. The alien vessel never knew what hit it. 1 second it was there, the next it was expanding cloud of vapor. The second ship started to turn, but it was already too late. Marcus had rigged his asteroid with dozens of small charges designed to scatter debris in all directions. To the Kethter sensors, it looked like his ship had exploded. In reality, it was camouflage. The third ship was destroyed by Captain Kim, who had been hiding inside a piece of debris from the first explosion. Her weapon was even simpler than Marcus's. She had taken a cargo container, filled it with a small nuclear device, and fired it at point-blank range. When the smoke cleared, 3 Kethter ships were gone. The humans had not lost anyone. The aliens back at their base waited for the patrol to report in. When they did not, a larger force was sent to investigate. They found nothing but wreckage and empty space. This happened again 2 weeks later. Then, again, a month after that. Each time, the human attacks were different. Each time, the aliens learned nothing useful about human capabilities or tactics. Each time, more Kethter ships simply vanished without a trace. General Thakmer began to suspect. Something was wrong when his 15th Patrol failed to return from the outer system. "This makes no sense," he told Commander Velenith. "The humans had no military left. We destroyed everything they had. Where are these attacks coming from?" Velenith studied the reports on her screen. The evidence suggests small-scale raids by survivors using improvised weapons. Nothing we cannot handle once we locate their base of operations. Then locate it. Sir, we have searched every world and asteroid in the system. We have found nothing but empty mining stations and abandoned research facilities. What they had not found were the humans who were living inside those supposedly empty facilities. Humans who had learned to hide their heat signatures and mask their energy emissions. Humans who could make a working base look like a dead rock from the outside. Humans who were getting very good at killing aliens. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chun finished his analysis of Kethter computer systems. It turned out that alien security was designed to stop other aliens, not humans. Human programming languages and human logic patterns were so different that they slipped right through alien defenses like they were not even there. Within days, human hackers had access to Kethter, communication networks. They could read enemy orders before they were even sent. They could track ship movements across multiple star systems. They could even access the personal files of alien officers. That was how they learned about the Kethter expansion plans. The aliens were not just conquering Earth. They were planning to take over dozens of human colonies throughout the region. Millions more humans were going to die unless someone stopped them. The humans decided to stop them, but they were not going to do it the way the aliens expected. They were not going to build a big fleet and fight a traditional war. They were not going to attack military targets and try to win through superior firepower. They were going to do something that had never been tried before in the history of galactic warfare. They were going to disappear entire worlds. Elena Vasquez had been working on the problem for months. How do you hide a planet? How do you make something the size of a world invisible to alien sensors? The answer, it turned out, was surprisingly simple. You do not hide the planet. You hide the people. The first test was on Kepler-4 42b, where the human colony had been expecting a Kethter invasion fleet for weeks. When the aliens finally arrived, they found exactly what they were looking for: a human world. Cities and roads, and power plants. All the signs of a thriving civilization. But no humans. The aliens landed their troops and searched every building. They found houses with meals still on the tables. They found offices with computers still running. They found schools with children's artwork still hanging on the walls, but they did not find a single living human being. The first Kethter world to disappear was called Velthara Prime. It was a beautiful planet, covered in purple forests and silver cities that reached up into the clouds. 20 million aliens lived there, working in factories that built ships for the hegemony fleet. It was an important world, heavily defended by orbital platforms and patrol squadrons. On a Tuesday morning, it simply was not there anymore. The star was still burning. The other planets in the system were still in their orbits. But where Velthara Prime had been, there was nothing but empty space. General Thakmer stood in his command center and stared at the report for the 5th time. It had to be a mistake. Planets did not just vanish. It was impossible. "Get me Admiral Krelshon," he ordered. "I want to speak to whoever is in charge of the Velthara system." His communications officer worked at her station for several minutes, then looked up with confusion on her face. "Sir, I cannot establish contact with anyone in that system. All communication relays appear to be offline." "Then send a ship to investigate." "Sir, we already did." The investigation team arrived 6 hours ago. They confirmed that Velthara Prime is gone. No debris field, no signs of destruction. The planet simply does not exist anymore. Thakmer felt something cold growing in his stomach, the same feeling he had experienced once before during a battle. That had gone very badly for his forces. The feeling that told him he was facing an enemy he did not understand. How? He asked. How do you destroy an entire planet without leaving any trace? "We do not know, sir. Our scientists say it should be impossible. Even if you used the most powerful weapons in the galaxy, there would be debris. There would be some sign of what happened." Commander Valineth was studying reports on her tablet. "Sir, there is something else. The investigation team found something strange in the area where the planet used to be." "What kind of something?" "A message buoy, broadcasting on human frequencies." Thakmer felt the cold feeling get worse. "What does it say?" Valineth activated the main screen. A human face appeared, but not one that Thakmer recognized. This was a young human female with short red hair and bright green eyes. She was smiling. "Hello there," the human said in a cheerful voice. "If you are receiving this message, it means you found where Velthara Prime used to be. We are sorry." for the inconvenience, but the planet and all its inhabitants have been relocated. The word relocated was translated into Kethter as something like moved to a different place, but Thakmar had the feeling that was not what the human really meant. We know you are probably confused, the human continued. After all, planets are very big and moving them is traditionally considered impossible. But humans have always specialized in doing impossible things. We built cities underwater and on mountaintops. We went to other worlds using chemical rockets. We even learned how to split atoms and put them back together again. The human's smile became less friendly. Making a planet disappear turned out to be much easier than we expected, especially once we figured out how your people think. The screen showed images now. Valthara Prime, as it had been, with its beautiful cities and busy spaceports, and the same locations, but empty. Buildings stood exactly where they had always been, but there were no lights in the windows and no ships in the sky. The thing about conquest, the human explained, is that it only works if the people you conquer stay where you can find them. But what if they do not? What if they simply leave? More images flashed by. Underground tunnels large enough to hold entire cities. Transport ships disguised as cargo haulers. Temporary colonies built inside asteroids and hidden in nebulae. We learned from studying your history that you always follow the same pattern. You attack a world, you destroy the defenses, you demand surrender. If the people refuse, you kill. Some of them until the rest give up. Then you move in and take over. The human leaned forward, and her eyes were no longer friendly at all. But what happens when there are no people left to surrender? What happens when you show up to claim your prize and find nothing but empty buildings? The answer, Thakmar was learning, was panic. Where are the people? Vialendif asked, as if the human on the screen could hear her. 20 million individuals do not just disappear. The recording continued. Oh, do not worry about the residents of Valthara Prime. They are all perfectly safe. We rescued them before you could hurt them. It was actually quite easy. Your people never look up. The screen showed new images. Massive human ships, larger than anything the Kethter had ever built, floating in orbit above the purple world. But these ships were not metal. They looked like they were made of rock and ice, designed to blend in with asteroids and comets. See, while you were busy conquering primitive worlds with small armies, we were building something much more useful. We built ships that could move entire populations. Ships that could carry cities. Ships that your sensors cannot detect because they do not look like ships at all. Thakmar realized what he was seeing. The humans had not destroyed Valthara Prime. They had evacuated it. They had taken every living being on the planet and moved them somewhere else. Then they had left the empty world for the Kethter to find. But why? What was the point of saving alien civilians if you were at war with their government? The human seemed to read his thoughts. We know what you are thinking. Why would we save the lives of people whose military killed our families? The answer is simple. We are not like you. The image changed to show the rescued aliens. They were alive and healthy, living in what looked like temporary shelters built inside the massive human ships. Children were playing games while adults worked at various jobs. They looked confused, but not afraid. When we first learned about your species, the human continued, we thought you were just soldiers following orders. We thought maybe your civilians were different. Maybe they were innocent people who had no choice in what their military did. The human's expression grew sad. We were right. These people had no idea their government was killing children on distant worlds. They were just living their lives, working their jobs, raising their families. They did not deserve to die for the crimes of their leaders. Now Thakmar understood why he felt so cold. The humans were not just fighting a war. They were making a statement. They were showing the galaxy that they could reach out and touch. Any world they wanted, take anything they wanted, destroy anything they wanted. But they were choosing not to destroy. They were choosing to save lives instead of taking them got. It made them far more terrifying than any conventional enemy. So we made a decision, the humans said. We are not going to fight this war the way you expect. We are not going to kill innocent people to hurt their government. We are not going to become monsters just because you are monsters. The screen showed more images of human ships and human technology. Weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. Devices that could make stars burn hotter or colder. Ships that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Instead, we are going to do something that has never been done before in any war. We are going to take away everything you value, piece by piece, without killing anyone who does. Not deserve to die. The humans smiled again, but now it was the smile of a predator that had just smelled blood, starting now. The message ended. The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody in the Kethter command center said anything. Then reports started coming in from other systems. Kethter Colony 7 was empty. The buildings were intact. The machines were still running. But all. 2 million residents were gone. Forge World Beta had been evacuated. The massive weapons factories were abandoned. Their assembly lines stopped in the middle of building new ships. Mining station Gamma 12 was deserted. The asteroid processors were still working, but there was nobody left to operate them. World after world, the same story. The humans were taking apart the Kethter Empire one piece at a time. Not by destroying it, but by simply removing all the births. People who made it work. Sir, Velenith said quietly, we need to contact the Hegemony Council. This is beyond our ability to handle. Thakmar nodded slowly. For the first time in his 3 centuries of conquest, he was facing an enemy that fought, completely outside the normal rules of war. An enemy that had technology he did not understand, and tactics he had never seen before. An enemy that was making him look like a fool. But the worst part was not the military defeat. The worst part was the message the humans were sending to every species in the galaxy. Look what we can do. Look how easily we can take apart your greatest empire. Look how we can save millions of lives while we do it. If this is what we do to our enemies, imagine what we could do for our friends. Across the galaxy, other species were indeed watching, and many of them were starting to think that maybe they had chosen the wrong side. The Alteron Empire was the first to officially change their position. Ambassador Creolon sent a message to the human colonies offering to mediate peace talks. The response came back within hours. It was short and simple. We are not interested in peace talks. We are interested in justice. When the Kethter return our dead, we will consider returning their living. Since bringing back the dead was impossible, everyone understood what the humans really meant. The war would continue until the Kethter Empire was completely. The Galactic Council emergency session was called exactly 1 year after the first human message had been ignored. Commander Vexthal stood in the same chamber where they had dismissed the precursor warning, but everything had changed. Half the seats were empty. Representatives from dozens of worlds had simply stopped coming to council meetings. Some because their governments had fallen. Some because they were too busy dealing with refugee crises. Some because they no longer saw any point in talking while the galaxy burned around them. The ones who remained looked like they had not slept in months. Ambassador Creolon was the first to speak. Her blue skin had faded to an unhealthy gray color, and her hands shook as she accessed her data tablet. The latest reports, she said, and her voice cracked on the words. In the past month, 47 more Kethter worlds have been evacuated. The human fleet has been sighted in 32 different star systems. They appear to have some kind of faster-than-light technology that makes them impossible to track. She paused to take a shaking breath. The Kethter military is requesting emergency support from all Council member species. They claim they are fighting for the survival of galactic civilization itself. Dr. Yelena from the Scientific Consortium was next. Her 3 eyes were bloodshot, and her normally perfect notes were scattered and disorganized. My analysis suggests the humans have developed technology centuries ahead of our current understanding, she said. Their ships appear to use some form of dimensional folding that allows them to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Their weapons can disassemble matter at the atomic level and then reassemble it elsewhere. They have essentially learned to move planets. She looked up from her notes with an expression of pure terror. There is no known defense against these capabilities. If they decided to target Council worlds, we could not stop them. General Thakmer was present via hologram from his flagship. The proud warrior who had laughed at human primitiveness now looked like a broken old man. His red armor was dented and scorched, and there were bandages visible under his helmet. The situation is worse than the reports indicate, he said. The humans are not just taking our worlds. They are learning from them. Every time they evacuate a planet, they study our technology and improve their own. They are becoming stronger while we become weaker. He activated a display showing the current map of the galaxy. Large sections that had once been colored in Kethter red were now marked in human blue. They control over 200 star systems now, but control is the wrong word. They do not occupy these worlds. They do not even visit most of them. They simply own them. The populations that live there are gone, relocated to places we cannot find. The resources are untouched, as if they are being saved for some future purpose. Ambassador Ziktar spoke. From his corner, his whispered voice somehow carrying clearly through the chamber. Perhaps it is time to consider that we brought this upon ourselves. Angry voices erupted around the chamber. How dare he suggest that the Council was at fault? They had done nothing wrong. They had simply ignored a warning about a primitive species that posed no threat, except the species had not been primitive, and they had posed a threat beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The precursors warned us, Zektar continued, ignoring the protests. They told us never to challenge the humans. We laughed at their warning. We thought we knew better. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of ages. I have been researching the ancient archives. I found records that the younger species do not know about. Records of what happened to the precursors themselves. The chamber fell silent. They did not vanish mysteriously, as our histories claim. They did not ascend to a higher plane of existence. They encountered the humans 50,000 years ago, when humanity was still using stone tools and living in caves. Dr. Yelena leaned forward. That is impossible. Humans only developed spaceflight a few centuries ago. No, Zektar replied. Humans developed spaceflight a few centuries ago for the second time. The first time was when the precursors tried to uplift them. They thought humans were an interesting primitive species that could be guided and shaped into useful servants. The hologram of General Thakmer flickered as he leaned closer to his camera. What happened? The humans learned. They always learn. Within a single generation, they had surpassed their teachers. Within 2 generations, they had technology the precursors could not understand. Within 3 generations, the precursor civilization was gone. Silence filled the chamber like a physical weight. But the humans did what they always do. Zektar continued. They saved the precursor people. They relocated them to safe worlds in distant galaxies. Then they made a choice. They destroyed all their own advanced technology and returned to being a primitive species. Why? Ambassador Creolon whispered. Because they realized they were too dangerous. They chose to forget how to travel between stars rather than risk hurting other species by accident. They spent 50,000 years keeping themselves contained on one small world, hoping that when they finally returned to space, they would be wiser. Commander Vexthal spoke for the first time since the session began, and we proved them wrong. Yes, we showed them that the galaxy had not changed, that advanced civilizations still thought might made right, that primitive species were still seen as resources to be exploited. Zektar's image flickered as he accessed old files. The precursors left one final message in the deepest archives, a message they hoped would never need to be read. It says simply, "We tried to teach them that power should be used to protect, not to conquer. We failed. If you are reading this, it means someone else has made the same mistake we did. The humans will not forgive twice," the implication settled over the chamber like a burial shroud. The humans were not some lucky primitive species that had stumbled onto advanced technology. They were the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever produced, deliberately holding themselves back until someone proved they could not be trusted to stay peaceful. The Kethter had provided that proof. So what do we do? General Thakmer asked. How do we fight an enemy that chooses to limit their own power? We do not, Commander Vexthal said quietly. We surrender. Never. Thakmer's image flared with desperate anger. The Kethter do not surrender. We have never surrendered. Then you will be extinct within a year, Vexthal replied. Look at the data. Look at what they have accomplished in 12 months. They have dismantled your empire without killing anyone except soldiers who chose to fight. They have rescued billions of your own people and given them better lives than they had under your rule. They have demonstrated technology that makes our greatest achievements look like children's toys. He gestured to the nearly empty chamber around them. And they have done it all while showing more mercy than any conquering force in galactic history. What do you think will happen when they decide that mercy is not working? As if summoned by his words, every screen in the chamber flickered too. Life, the same human face that had appeared in the messages from evacuated worlds, looked out at them. But this time, the cheerful expression was gone. Leaders of the Galactic Council, the human said. This is Admiral Sarah Kim of the United Human Colonial Fleet. I believe it is time we had a direct conversation. Nobody in the chamber moved. Nobody seemed to even breathe. 1 year ago, you ignored a warning about our species. 6 months ago, General Thakmer destroyed our homeworld and killed millions of our people. We have spent the time since then demonstrating what humans can accomplish when we put our minds to it. The screen showed images of the evacuated worlds. Empty cities, abandoned factories, entire civilizations relocated to places beyond the reach of their former governments. We have taken apart the Kethter Empire piece by piece. We have rescued over 2 billion people from slavery and oppression. We have shown the galaxy that there is an alternative to rule by force. Admiral Kim's expression hardened. But some of you still do not understand. Some of you still think this is a normal war that can be won through normal means. So we are going to give you one final demonstration. The image changed to show a star system at the edge of Kethter space. It was heavily fortified with orbital defense platforms and patrol fleets guarding what appeared to be a massive military base. This is Kethter Prime, the homeworld of the species that destroyed Earth. Population, 47 million. Military strength, 60,000 warships. Defensive systems, classified as impregnable by your own military analysts. The human smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Vexthal had ever seen. Watch closely. The image switched to a real-time view of the system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to ripple, like water disturbed by a dropped stone. Human ships appeared. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands. Ships the size of moons, ships that looked like living creatures. Ships that seemed to be made of pure light. They surrounded Kethter Prime in a sphere of overwhelming force. But they did not attack. Instead, they began to sing. The sound that came through the speakers was unlike anything any of the council members had ever heard. It was not words or music, but something deeper, something that seemed to speak directly to the soul.